Thank you all for joining Alliance Solutions Group True Cloud Field Service for Sage 100. We're going to take a look at Sage Service Operations here this afternoon and give you just a nice introduction to what the product can do for you and your business. Before we jump into the software, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Alliance Solutions Group that you work with. We are your Sage business partner. You've probably heard from us on a regular basis. For most of you, we sold you your software and we continue to service you with consulting and assistance with other products. We've got about 40 employees in our company and about 7,000 clients nationwide. Our main offices are down in Florida, but we do have offices in Texas and in California. All the states in green are the area which we cover. And we work with all these different types of products. So while you primarily use Sage 100, no, we've got a lot of other applications like Sage Service Operations that we're looking at today, along with other project management estimating solutions that are available as well. And your account rep, well, today we won't be taking any questions. Your account manager will be following up with you if they haven't already to see what other questions you have on Sage Service Operations and find out if you want to schedule a more in-depth demonstration of the product. Reasons why people work with Alliance Solutions Group and continue to is our extensive construction expertise. Most everybody here at Alliance has worked in the construction industry, either on the accounting side or the operations side. I myself was a controller for many years at a mechanical company using Sage 100 along with Sage Service Operations. All of our consultants have certifications in the Sage products and even advanced certifications. We're also local, so a lot of you may have worked with somebody who came on site or comes on site regularly. We work with all of the proven Sage solutions, 100, also 300, estimating, and HRMS for HR. And then we can assist you with anything from setup all the way on through training, going live, and hosting. So let's move into looking at Sage Service Operations. I like to show this slide because I think it gives a good visual of how Sage Service Operations works with your existing Sage 100 contractor. So your Sage 100 contractor, your back office, where you're creating those work orders in the 11.2 screen, setting those up. When you create that work order in Sage 100, it's going to pass through the cloud, through our API, out into Sage Service Operations. And depending on your role in the company, you may use that information in different ways. If you're a technician, you're going to receive that work order and know that you've got work you need to do, and you can report your notes, your pictures, your time, your materials, and that information is going to then flow back to the office for billing to pick it up and bill out. Now, for the dispatch side of the business, the office who's doing the dispatching is going to be able to also dispatch through Sage Service Operations. We'll be able to create work orders and schedule and review schedules. And then finally, as a client, which we're not going to look at this today, but know that there's also a client portal that's available. You could have access for your client to log in, view work orders, create work orders, and just see a general history of their account. So Sage Service Operations is a web-based application. Anywhere you've got an internet browser, you can access SSO. It could be from your tablet, like an iPad. It could be from a computer, like we're going to look at on mine today, or it could be from your phone. And notice the shape, the look and feel of it's different depending on the size of the device. That's because it's got a reactive design. And if it's on a smaller design, a smaller size tool, it changes size, making it easier to use. If it's got more real estate, like in this tablet view, you've got more real estate to view what's going on. So with that, let's hop into the program. So I'm logged in as an administrator, so I'm going to see all these menus across the top. But if I was just a technician, I'm only going to see my assignments. If I'm maybe a dispatcher, I perhaps only see the dispatch tab. So what you see is based on the role you have in Sage Service Operations. So let's first start off that we're a dispatcher, and let's take a look at what the dispatcher sees when they log in. So there is a dispatch board, and what you do back in Sage 100 passes through into SSO. So again, that work order that's created in the office flows through to be created here in SSO and can be scheduled. So I could schedule work for my technicians. I can simply just drag and drop a work order so it lands on their schedule. I can move activities around. Activities will start to change color and look depending on what the status is. This one's been completed, so it's in gray. These ones haven't started, so they're white. As work begins, they'll turn green. I can also create new work orders. So if I want to do some dispatching from SSO instead of inside of Sage 100, I can come over here and pick, I want to create a work order. Now I can pick my client. And now I'm going to get a lot of the questions that I see on the work order screen. Is it tied to a job? Is there a purchase order from our customer? What's the status of the work order? What type of work order is it? And this is all based on your setup because this is reading directly back from your database. As it connects with Sage 100, it pulls all the information that you've already set up and are already currently using to be used inside of SSO. So we've got a 2-hour window that it takes to do this repair. We've assigned it a date, who it's assigned to, and then I can give a quick description. Generate my work order. And Sage is going to create this work order, adding it back into Sage 100, but then also adding it to my dispatch board. So I go back to my scheduler here. I can now view that work order I just created here. Now, something that I can't do in Sage 100 is have more than a week or a 1-day view. In Sage Service Operations, I have the option to have a 2-week view of the schedule, as well as a 1-month view of my schedule. I also can set up teams. Right now I'm looking at all employees, but perhaps I just want to see this group of employees. And so now it's going to show me not only employees, but I have the option of also viewing equipment if I own the equipment module, as well as subcontractors and schedule work for them. And these would not be work orders I'd be scheduling, but this could be just assignments, letting me see that this subcontractor is going to be on the job and or this piece of equipment is going to be used on a specific job. So now my dispatcher has created a new call, they've scheduled the call. Now let's put on our hat as a technician. What does my technician see from the field? So they're going to see this assignment view. My assignment view gives them a daily look at what's on their calendar. So here's Monday's activities, here's Tuesday's activities, etc. Notice over to the right, it gives a daily total of how many hours. Now that is collecting their time for payroll. You do have the option to collect the time for payroll, and that will flow back into the daily payroll screen so that you can use that time to run payroll. So instead of having to collect that time separately and key it in, it can flow from the work order back into Sage. So let's take a look at that work order we just created. So I'm going to click on my work order. And as a technician, I can see the details. Now, once this call has been scheduled with me, my technician can receive an email letting them know that they have a new call. But I'm sure typically they're going to be looking at their assignment once they've completed one to see what's on their schedule next. So when I enter the call, the first thing I'm able to do is run a set of directions. So here's my location of my next call. I can click directions and it will use a mapping tool to route me to that call. I also may be curious to know, have we been out there before? Is this a reoccurring problem? And I can access that history by clicking on this KB properties. So this is a link to my client record. And now it's accessing all the past history that is really stored back in Sage 100, but it's pulling it through into Sage Service Operations. So here's all the past calls, the times we've been out there before. I could click on any one of these and see the notes from the previous call. I could see pictures that were attached. I could see materials that were purchased and installed on site. And I can view that all without having to call the office and ask questions. I'm also able to see what equipment's installed on site, manufacturer number, serial number, site location. I'm able to see maybe any quotes that are out there and let them know, hey, you were quoted to replace that water heater. Maybe you want to go ahead and do that. So I get a big picture of what's going on with my client, along with all the attachments I can quickly view. So I could scroll through pictures and quickly look at one that caught my eye. So let's go ahead back into that work order that we were working on. So now what my technician can do from the field, they can review the history, they can review any notes. So if I click on notes, I'd be able to see any internal notes that the office perhaps typed in for me. I would also be able to respond with notes that the client's going to see. So we repaired and replaced the issue. So I could put in a note. I also have what we call canned notes, where I can let my technician just grab from a canned note that's already in the system. And when I click on it, it drops the note in instead of me having to type maybe the same type of comment over and over again. Now, I also can communicate with the office. So maybe there's something that's going on in the field that I want to let the office know. Normally I would probably send a text or pick up the phone, but in order to keep all that information within this work order, I can type in that note and come down here and just click submit notes. And as quick as I could send a text, this is going to email my service manager and or my dispatcher. I can pick who it needs to go to. Now, it's gone to them, as you see, but it's also saved that question in the work order, so it's there for us to review later on. So now that I've got some notes in about what the diagnosis of the problem is or what the solution is, I want to start maybe capturing the time. Maybe I'm just leaving my shop and I want to start my travel. So I can click travel start. SSO is dropping a pin in the time and starting to keep up with what time we left the shop. Now we're traveling. We've arrived on site. I can come back into that assignment and say finish my travel and start my assignment. Now, a question I typically get here is, what if I've got a helper or an apprentice that rides with me? Well, I can have multiple employees listed on this work order, and as the main technician or the main user, I can start time for both of us. That's where you see all finish, all travel start. So I could start time for both of us and capture both me and my helper's time on this one work order. So now we've started our call. We finished traveling. We've started it. We do have the ability to update payroll. So this can be pushed back into daily field reports. So I can click add to payroll or don't add. So I'm going to choose to save this to payroll. And now it's pushed that time back into Sage. So I've got some time now started. Now, for those of you who don't care to track clock in and clock out, I also have the ability just to drop in some hours. So I can choose to add some labor in. So I can just say, let's add some labor, and I can here pick myself, how many hours I worked, or I can pick me and maybe another employee that was with me, say how many hours we worked, what type of pay, and drop this right into my call. So you have the option to either start and clock in, clock out, or just add in some time. So now we've got some time started on our job. Our next step is going to be maybe we pull some materials off of our truck to use in the repair. So I can go into inventory parts and choose to add a part. Now, if I am using inventory, this will allow me to select which inventory location I'm pulling from, my truck, a warehouse. But if I'm not using inventory, this still can be helpful because I can build a list of parts, and some of you may already be doing this inside of Sage, a list of parts that I can select from. So instead of me having to type in that part name every single time or my version of a part name every single time, I can just start to type and it will bring up those items. And I can pick the wire I want, and then I can add in the quantity and I can save it. Now, if it was coming from my truck, I could pick my truck. And now when I click save, it's going to capture it for billing purposes. But it's also capturing it for inventory purposes. Now, eventually, when I bill this work order out for those of you that are using inventory with service, you know at that point when you post the invoice, that's when it moves it out of inventory and records it against the work order as an expense. And it will do the same thing. We're just setting it up in advance because what we do here in the field is passing through to Sage 100. So the materials that we list, the labor that we list, it's going to show up now on the work order for us to be able to bill against. So we also can add in miscellaneous items. Maybe there's things that are not on our truck that we need for the job. Now, as a technician, I can add those items in so the office can correctly bill them out, but you may have a policy that you want them to get a purchase order from that. Now, they, of course, can call into the office, but we also can have them request a purchase order from within the work order. So they could select that they need a purchase order. It will then create a purchase order for me that's tied to this work order. And then they can add in any of those miscellaneous items. So I can choose to add those items. I can put in a part if I want to. I can say what piece of equipment it was for, put in any additional notes, and save the item. So now I've completed my work. I've started my time. I've added in some parts. I've put in my description. Maybe I want to capture some photos to report back for the customer and for the office. So under attachments, this is where I can add in attachments. Now, if I've already taken the photo, I can select it. But if I'm using this from my phone, I can go to my camera roll, take the picture, and drop it in here. So I'm going to pick a photo that I've saved here. Give it a description. I can tie it to a piece of equipment if I want to, and then I can add this attachment. Now, once my attachment's added, it's available for me to review. It's going to be there for the next person who wants to look at the history, but it's also dropping that attachment back into Sage 100. So now when I pull up that work order under that paperclip tool, I'm going to see that photo attached within that work order. So if I'm in the office and I'm doing collections calls and there's a question, I could go back and see all that information and send that over to a client if I need to. Now, another tool I have is the sketch tool. Sketch tool allows me to reference a photo that I've taken and maybe mark it up to send to somebody with a question. So I can give it a quick title, give it some comments, and then I can pick the photo that I want to use. So I'm going to grab my photo. So here's my photo I've uploaded. I have these tools that I can now mark it up. Maybe I want a question on this item. I can draw attention to it. I can select who I want to be emailed to, and then I can save it. Now, at this point, it's emailing the person I selected, but it's also saving a copy of the report for me on the file. This sketch tool is also being dropped back into Sage 100 for reference later. So now I have a couple of attachments. We'll take a look at what that sketch tool email looks like. It looks like this. Here's my questions. Here's the photo that's been marked up. This is what I would have received if it had been emailed to me. So now our job is winding down. We want to maybe end our assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and end my assignment. And I can add this time to payroll if I want. And if I did, it would drop it back into the daily field report, the daily payroll screen. So now I've added in time, I've added in description, I've added in some miscellaneous parts and inventory parts. So I want maybe my customer to sign off on the work that I've done. Sage Service Operations offers a service report that I can give to my customer and have them even sign off on it. So here's what they're going to see. Now, anything that's in green can be adjusted. So if I don't want them to see when I arrived and departed, I could choose to hide the assignment because maybe I have a minimum hours. I don't want them to see I was only there for 4 minutes. but I'm billing them for 4 hours. I could see the parts that I had installed. Either it's coming from inventory or my parts list, or it's coming from my miscellaneous typing. Here's some that labor we added in. Now, you may be noticing that there's dollars and prices. This can be hidden. This is part of the setup. You choose what you want the service report to look like. Do you want it to be almost like an invoice, or do you want it to be more just a description of what we did, and the office will send this out? So this could be hidden. You have the option to say if the work was completed or not. It is completed. And then down here, there's a place for me to sign off on this work order. I can then choose who I want it to be sent to, and then I can accept it. At this point, it's going to let me select any of the photos that I had attached, including that sketch if I wanted. So I'm going to add that photo and send it. So at this point, I can say it's all complete and I want to return back to my assignments page, and I've now finished my work order. So here my work order shows completed. It's showing the hours that I had plugged in. So now it's keeping that running total for me to know how many hours I've worked today, as well as worked for the entire week. At the end of the week, I'm able to submit the time, and I can even give my supervisor access to Sage Service Operations to do a time review. So as a supervisor, I may want to review all of my technicians' time. As the accounting person, I don't want them in there seeing wages. So Sage Service Operations is a nice safe place for them to review time, but not see wages. So I can review all this time. I can correct jobs. I can correct cost codes. And that's going to flow right back into Sage 100 for me, keeping them out of payroll, but letting them still do their job. So just to review, we talked about what the dispatcher could do. They could create work orders. They can schedule those work orders. Then as our technician, we can view the work orders that have been assigned to us, see the history of the client's past records. We also can add in notes, time, materials, photos, and have them sign off on a service report. Now, one of the last hats I want to put on is just as an overall manager, that we have a dashboard within here where I can see what's been going on in the service department, how many calls have been completed today, how many service orders have been created, what's been invoiced. I also can see unassigned service orders. I've got a couple different filters. I can sort it by type of service order. I also could see recent activity, and this billing assistant can be helpful to know what's been finished that's now available to bill. The last thing I want to show us before we wrap up our quick overview is that we also can keep up with quotes. So as a technician, I'm usually the one recommending a replacement, new system, and I can generate a quote that can then be followed up with maybe by somebody else in the office. So my quote will generate a log of quotes, as you see here. They have different statuses. If I go in and take a look at one of these existing quotes, I'm going to be able to put labor on the quote, how many hours it's going to take. I'm going to be able to attach the miscellaneous items that need to be replaced or repaired, and then see the quote. Here's labor and materials that we're charging, what our markup, our margin is. And then I can send this quote to my customer along with maybe any photos. And then once they say approve it, I can turn this into a work order and get the work scheduled. So Sage Service Operation, not only communicates with your technicians in the field and provides them with the ability to access information real time, and gives you then the ability to see that what they're doing in the field real time, the pictures they're adding, the notes they're taking, but it also extends the tools that you're already using in service work orders. You're able to have different views of the dispatch board, a more sophisticated quoting tool system and log, and then also our dashboard to see what's going on. So I hope you found this afternoon helpful in learning a little bit about Sage Service Operations. And as I mentioned, your account manager from Alliance will be following up with you to see what additional questions you have. And if you'd like to get a more in-depth demonstration scheduled, we'd be happy to do that. Thank you for attending and have a good afternoon.